Hello, sir.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Now we have covered several tools in our course so far. So let me list down what are the tools we covered as part of this DevOps training as of now. Okay, so we started with Linux. We started with Linux commands we learned, shell scripting also we have seen. Then after we have learned AWS cloud services. So several cloud services we learned in the AWS, like we discussed about EC2 service in the AWS. We discussed about Elastic Block Store service in the AWS. We discussed about load balancer, load balancer. We discussed about auto scaling. We discussed about S3 buckets. We discussed about RDS database. We discussed about DynamoDB. We discussed about VPC. We discussed about Route 53. And we discussed about cloud formation. And what else we discussed, guys? We discussed about ECS. We discussed about EKS, EC2, EBS, LBR, auto scaling group, S3 buckets, RDS, DynamoDB, VPC, Route 53, cloud formation, ECS, EKS, lambdas, and we discussed about Beanstalk, Elastic Beanstalk. Also, we discussed in the AWS. We discussed about CloudWatch, AMI. We discussed about CloudWatch, AMI, and we discussed about SNS, simple notification service. What else? Anything else we learned? We discussed about CLI. We discussed about IAM, EC2, EBS, LBR, ASG, S3, RDS, Dynamo, VPC, Route 53, Cloud Formation, ECS, EKS, Lambdas, Beanstalk, CloudWatch, AMI, SNS, CLI, IAM. Good. So these are the services we discussed from AWS Cloud. Okay. So Linux commands we understood. We understood DevOps introduction. We discussed about cloud computing. Then we discussed about Linux commands, shell scripting, AWS advantages, AWS cloud services, several services we discussed from AWS. Then coming to DevOps. So we discussed about DevOps tools, DevOps tool chain, we can say. So what are the tools we learned in the DevOps? We discussed about DevOps lifecycle, how the DevOps process will be available. And we discussed about waterfall methodology. We discussed about agile methodology, agile methodology, then Maven, then GitHub, GitHub. Today we covered Nexus repo. We discussed about Jenkins and pipelines, and we discussed about SonarQube, which is code quality checking tool. Jenkins is a CI/CD software. After Jenkins, we discussed about Ansible and playbooks. Then we discussed about Terraform, that is infrastructure as a code software, Terraform software. Then we discussed about Tomcat, how to create the Tomcat servers, how to configure users in the Tomcat, how to do the deployments in the Tomcat. And the most important thing is Docker, Docker Swarm, Docker and Docker Swarm also we discussed. Then we discussed about Kubernetes, Docker, Docker Compose, and Docker Swarm. And Kubernetes. Kubernetes we discussed with self-managed cluster using Kubedium. And we discussed about EKS cluster. So this is what we learned so far in our syllabus. Lot of things. Lot of things. DevOps introduction, cloud computing, Linux commands, shell scripting, AWS cloud advantages, AWS cloud advantages, AWS cloud services, several services we learnt, DevOps toolchain, DevOps lifecycle, waterfall methodology, software development lifecycle we discussed, SDLC, DevOps lifecycle, SDLC, waterfall methodology, agile methodology, Maven, GitHub, Nexus, SonarQube, Jenkins and pipelines, Ansible with playbooks, Terraform, Tomcat, Docker, Docker Compose, Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, Kubedium, EKS cluster, Helm charts, monitoring tools, Prometheus, Grafana, and we discussed about EFK stack. EFK stack, that is nothing but Elasticsearch, Filebeat, and Kibana. Elasticsearch, Filebeat, and Kibana. Okay. Now, can you mention all these things in the resume? Can we call it as master program on the DevOps and AWS? Is it sufficient for 3 years experience, guys? Is it sufficient for 3 years experience? Yes, it is a master program on the DevOps. Almost all, whatever I know in the DevOps and AWS, whatever you need to work on the project, this is more than sufficient. If you mention all these points, definitely they will get shocked. So many tools, so many services in the cloud, that what we learned in our course. It's more than sufficient for 3 years experienced people. It is more than sufficient for 3 years experienced people. More than sufficient for 3 years experienced people. If you mention all these things, definitely your resume will get shortlisted. Whatever is required for the real time, almost all we have covered. Right. Now, let's move on to our day-to-day activities. Let's move on to our day-to-day activities as a DevOps engineer. Okay, guys. Now, so here, first thing is you need to make sure that pipeline is running smoothly. So we are creating several pipelines in the Jenkins, and we need to make sure those pipelines are running smoothly. This is one of the most important task of a DevOps engineer, to make sure that CI/CD pipeline is intact and fixing any issues or failure with it is the priority for the day. When there is a problem, then when there is a problem with Jenkins pipelines, which are used to deploy your applications, then you should give the first priority for that issue. Okay, so every day you need to check how the pipelines are running. Every day you need to check how the pipelines are running. If the pipelines are having some issue, you need to consider that as a priority task and you need to fix that issue. Now, next one is interaction with the teams. Coordination and collaboration is the key for the DevOps to be successful. Hence, daily integration with the Dev and QA team, program management, IT is always required. So you need to interact. You need to interact with the developers and you need to interact with the team members. There should be a collaboration. Collaboration is the most important thing. Collaboration is the most important thing to make our DevOps practices are successful. Collaboration is the most important thing to make our DevOps practices are successful. Okay, and you need to work on automation stuff. So instead of doing the things manually, so you need to automate the work on automation backlog. So what are the things that we are doing currently manually? Those things we need to automate. Okay, automation is the soul of DevOps. So DevOps engineering need to plan it out, and I can see DevOps engineers spending lots of time behind the keyboard working on automation stuff on daily basis. So as a DevOps engineer, you need to spend most of your time to automate the works, right? We have seen the tools which are used to automate. And infrastructure management, maintaining the infrastructure required for CI/CD pipelines, right? Now, how to create a new platform which is required for the applications, how to set up the new servers, how to create the new virtual machines. That infrastructure management also will be taken care by DevOps engineer. Infrastructure management also should be taken care by DevOps engineer, right? DevOps engineers are also responsible for maintaining and managing infrastructure required for CI/CD pipeline, and making sure that it is up and running and being used optimally is also part of their daily schedule. Working on the backups, high availability, and a new platform setup, everything. That infrastructure management, automation, interaction with the team members, pipelines are running smoothly, that you need to check. Dealing with legacy stuff, not everyone is lucky to work on latest and newest things, and DevOps engineers are no exception. They need to spend time on legacy in terms of supporting art or migrating to the latest. So in your company, so if you are lucky, that project will be working all the latest tools for building and deployment. Suppose if you are working on any government projects, legacy projects, then latest tool set may not be available. There you need to spend lot of time to work on the old technologies and old tools. If possible, you need to migrate that legacy tool set into latest tech stack, right? So here, dealing with legacy stuff also one of your responsibility. Some projects may use all the latest tools, some projects may use old tools. Okay guys, exploring DevOps leverage a lot from the various tools which are available. There are many options as open source, so team need to regularly check on this to make sure adoptions as required. This is something which also requires some effort, not only daily but regular basis. What open source options available to keep the cost at a minimum. So here, to set up DevOps practices for our projects, we are using some tools. There are some tools commercial, there are some tools open source. So as a DevOps engineer, you need to look at the open source technologies which we can leverage in our project so that we can save the cost. We can make the cost minimal for the client. Okay guys. Now, there are some tools we are using, some commercial tools are available, some open source tools are available. You need to understand which open source tool is suitable for our project, that you need to suggest to your client. So if client is happy with your analysis, client will give you some rewards and awards also. You need to do analysis which open source tools that are we can use in our project. Okay, and removing bottlenecks. DevOps primary purpose is to identify the bottlenecks, manual handshakes, and work with everyone involved. Okay, right? So here developers and testers will be available in the project. They are going to do the developers are going to do the coding and will push the code into repositories, GitHub repositories. Then how that code should be deployed to dev environment. So instead of deploying that manually, we need to help them to automate the build and deployment so that they can easily test their code in the dev environment. And we need to help the testers to get the latest code into testing environment for testing. So we need to make this deployment process easy for the developers and testers in the non-prod environments. And documentation. Documentation is also most important thing when you are working on MNC companies, right? So whatever the work that you are doing, whatever the setup that you are doing, how you are creating the infrastructure, how you are creating the pipelines. So whatever the work that you are doing, that work you need to document in the company. Why? Because so you will work for this project maybe 1 year or 2 years. After that, you may change the company or you may change the project. So that is the reason we are going to prepare the documentation for what the work that we do. And if you face any issue also, that issue also you need to document with the solution. What are the problems you have faced with your DevOps practices and what is the solution you implemented to solve that problem? So those things you need to document. Those documents will be given to new joinees in the project. When a new person joined in the company in our project, we will share the documents, how we created infrastructure, how we created pipelines. All that documentation should be there so that new people will understand your project infrastructure, your project best practices. They will learn from your documentation. So in the team, every DevOps engineer should prepare a documentation. Suppose you're creating a Kubernetes cluster. So how you created the cluster and what are the challenges you faced in the cluster creation? What are the issues and how you resolved those issues? Everything you need to document and you need to keep that available for your team members. And the next important thing is training and self-development. Okay, so if you learn any new concept, then you need to provide a training on that technology or that tool to your team members, because everybody will not know everything. Suppose in your team, in your project, Kubernetes is not available. You joined in a company project. In that project, Kubernetes is not available, but you are good with Kubernetes. Then you can conduct one training session for your team members on Kubernetes. Just 2 to 3 hours training you can provide for your team members on Kubernetes. You tell them that you prepare one nice PPT. What is Kubernetes? In the companies, everything will be in the PPT only, guys. Every training, everything will be on the PPTs. You need to prepare a beautiful presentation and provide a training for your team members on Kubernetes. That will give a very good impression for your manager on you. And self-development. So if somebody conducting a training, if you don't know that, or if you know that also, you can attend the training, you can understand what they are explaining, how they are explaining. You can do that self-development activity, because everybody will not know everything. Every day new tech stack is coming into the market, new tools are coming into the market. So if you learn something new, you need to provide the training for your team members. If your team members providing a training on any topic, you need to attend the training, you need to learn something. So that is training and self-development is also part of your job. Continuous improvement, last but not least, it's up to the DevOps folks to build awareness on the potential CI/CD DevOps practices and building a culture of leveraging it for doing things better, reducing rework, increasing productivity, and optimizing the use of existing resources. Go and talk to people to build the DevOps and continuous improvement culture in your team. So maybe developers and testers may not have the full clarity on the DevOps practices. So whenever you have here some free time, you conduct a meeting within your team with to the developers and testers and tell them that how DevOps is important for our projects and how automation is important and how we are automating our build and deployments, because 99% of the developers will not have the clarity on the DevOps practices, because their job will be doing the coding, testing, pushing the code to repository. 99% of the developers will not have the clarity on the DevOps practices. We need to educate them. As a DevOps engineer, we need to educate them and we need to provide the guidance for them, how we are doing automation, why automation is important, how we are setting up the DevOps culture for our project, how it is helping in our project, whatever the DevOps practices we are setting up for our project, how these practices are helping us. All these things you need to explain to your development and testing teams in the project, because developers and testers will not know about what are the tools we are using, how we are automating the build and deployments. We need to educate them. So these all things you need to take care once you joined in the company. These are your day-to-day activities and these are your roles and responsibilities. Make sure that pipeline is running smoothly, which is the main thing to build and deploy our application. And you need to interact with your team members, developers, testers, management, IT team, all those things. You need to interact with your team members. And you need to work on automation part. And you need to work on infrastructure management. You need to deal with the legacy stuff. Any old technologies, old tools are there, you need to deal with them. You need to explore on the new things. Any new tools that are available, which are better than what we are using, and how to reduce the cost for our infrastructure for the client. And any issues that we need to fix, we need to identify any issues in the pipeline, any deployment issues that we need to segregate and we need to resolve. We need to make developers and testers life easy in terms of application deployment process. And whatever the things that we are doing, whatever the issues we are facing, we need to document them as a solution for the newcomers in the project. Training and self-development. If you learn anything new, then you need to train the people on that new technology. And if anybody giving some training, you need to attend that training also. And continuous improvement is a practice. Always you need to learn the new things and you need to try the new stuff in the project to make it simple, to make it smooth, to make it less cost. Clear? And the next one, once you join in the company as a DevOps engineer, you are going to join in the team, right? So here guys, in the project, DevOps teams are divided into two types. DevOps team, right? One DevOps team will be handling multiple projects in the company. So for one project, one team will not be available definitely. One DevOps team will handle multiple projects in the company. Multiple projects in the company. It's not about only one project. One DevOps team will handle multiple projects in the company. So we need to take care of build and deployment. We need to take care of build and deployments of all the projects that are assigned. In a company, multiple DevOps teams will be available. One DevOps team will be handling multiple projects. One DevOps team will handle multiple projects in the company, right? So we need to take care of as a team, we need to take care of infrastructure, automation, build pipeline creation, build and deployments for all the projects which are assigned to our team. So company will decide which team should handle which projects, which DevOps team should handle which projects. Company is going to decide, our management is going to decide. So for your team, they are assigning, assume that 5 projects, 4 to 5 projects will be available for a DevOps team. It's not about only one project. Developers will belongs to only one project. Testers will belongs to only one project, but a DevOps team will be handling multiple projects in the company. One DevOps team will handle multiple projects in the company. As a team, we need to take care of infrastructure, automation, pipeline creation, build and deployments for all the projects which are assigned to our team. In our team will be divided into two parts. One DevOps team will be divided into two parts. One is called as non-prod team, and another one is called as prod team. Within our team, within the DevOps only, again two teams will be available. One is called as non-prod team and another one is prod team. Prod team is called as release team. In this release team, they will keep highly experienced people within the project. It's not about your experience. So the person, if that person is working on same project from couple of years, if the person is working on the same project for couple of years, then those people will be belongs to prod team, nothing but release team. Non-prod team will handle infrastructure. Non-prod team will handle infrastructure, automation, pipelines, builds, deployments for non-prod environments. What is the meaning of non-prod environment? Dev, sit, UAT, and pre-prod. So here, when you join in the company as a new joinee, whether you have 2 years experience or you have 4 years experience, they will not keep you in the prod team directly. So prod team members are nothing but the people who are working on the same project for a couple of years, who are highly experienced with this prod deployments. Those people will be available in prod team. Those people will be available in the prod team. Those people will be available on the prod team. You got my point? So once you join in the company, then you will be part of non-prod team. Non-prod team means dev, sit, UAT, and pre-prod. Prod team will be handling the deployments. Prod team will handle prod team. Prod team is also called as release team, who are releasing the project to the public, to the production. Release team will handle prod environment related stuff, will handle for prod environment. Automation pipeline builds deployments for prod environment. Single prod environment will be available. One DevOps team will handle multiple projects in the company. As a team, we need to take care of infrastructure, automation, pipeline creation, build and deployment, monitoring for all the projects which are assigned to our team. Maybe 4 projects, 5 projects they will assign to our team. One DevOps team will be divided into 2 parts. Non-prod team will be available, prod team will be available. Non-prod team will handle infrastructure, automation, pipelines, builds, deployments for non-prod environments like dev environment, sit environment, UAT, and pre-prod. Prod team and release team will handle automation, pipelines, builds, deployments for prod environment. Okay, now new joinees will be part of non-prod team for 6 months, 3 to 6 months, for 3 to 6 months. New joinees should interact with the prod team. New joinees should interact with the prod team to understand prod deployment process. Should join new joinees, non-prod team members should join release meeting when there is a prod deployment. That means, so here experienced people will be available in the production, because company will not give production deployment for the new people, because if you do any mistake, the client business will be impacted. So that's why they don't give you production deployment directly when you join in the company. When you join in the project directly, they don't give you prod deployment activity. Okay, so you will be taking care of non-prod deployments only. Those are dev, sit, UAT, pre-prod. Within the company only we are going to use. If any mistake happened also, no problem, we can correct it. But if you do the mistake in the prod, gone. Project will be collapsed. That's why companies will not give you production deployment directly when you join in the project. So initially you will be part of non-production team. Local environments you are going to manage. And production team will be separate. They are called as a release team. Highly experienced people will be available on the prod team. They are going to do the production deployments for our applications. Right. So then how can we become a prod team member? So whenever the production deployment is happening, they will conduct a release meeting. That means the project deployment will happen mostly on the weekends. Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, mostly production deployments will happen on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The deployment process will take 1 to 2 hours of time. They will set up a meeting. Prod team member will be doing the prod deployment. Developers will be available in the meeting. Testers will be available in the meeting. DevOps team also will be available in the meeting. So one of the prod team member will release the project to the production. Everybody will be observing. It will be like a conference meeting, right? So whenever they are doing the production deployment, you need to observe the process. What is the checklist they are following? So there will be a checklist. Take the code from Git, build a Docker image, push the Docker image to Docker Hub, then start the Kubernetes cluster, right? Then run the pods, check the pods, monitor the cluster, then make it as a blue deployment, then make a green deployment, then divert the traffic from blue deployment to green deployment. All these things will be followed as a checklist. So for the production deployment, one checklist will be available, like a document will be available. Step by step, we need to follow that. So how they are doing the prod deployment, what is the checklist they are following, you need to observe for 3 to 6 months of time. Then they will give you production deployment activity. So you no need to worry. When you join in the company, immediately they will not assign you to the prod team. They will assign you to the non-prod team, and they will give you some training also in the company for the prod deployments. They will give you some training also for the prod deployment. In our company, guys, we are using, some companies will use different tools for prod deployment. Few companies will use different tools for prod deployment. In my company, Jenkins we are using for non-prod. Jenkins we are using for non-prod deployments. Jenkins we are using for non-prod deployments. udeploy tool we are using for prod deployment. Okay, udeploy is a commercial software again. Jenkins is an open source software. In my project, we are using Jenkins for non-prod deployment. udeploy we are using for prod deployment. Right, like this. For non-prod and prod, some tools also will be different. Some tools also will be different. You see, what is udeploy? udeploy tool. IBM company given this Urban Code Deploy overview. So udeploy is a IBM software. Jenkins is an open source software. udeploy is an IBM software. Okay. IBM Urban Deploy, formerly known as udeploy, is a GUI based deployment automation tool that provides you with the tools you need to orchestrate and automate the installation and deployment of order management. It facilitates fast deployment and enables you to deploy as often as you like, on demand, on schedule, and with self-service, while shortening the time of market. So we are using udeploy, that is called as Urban Code Deploy, to deploy our applications. This is a commercial software. So in my project, production deployment is happening with udeploy. Non-prod deployments are happening with Jenkins. You got the clarity? I love you. Samjha? Come on, guys. Good. Jenkins we are using for non-prod deployments. udeploy we are using for prod deployment. So it is in my company, we have this process. In other company, a different process may be available. Some companies will use Bamboo. Instead of Jenkins, they will use a software called Bamboo software is available. Bamboo tool in DevOps. DevOps culture, Bamboo tool is available, which is also used to. Bamboo allows you to automate the release management of your software application. Creating a continuous delivery, CI/CD tool enables your DevOps team to spend less time creating and running time-intensive yet redundant scripts and more time building the code that matters. Bamboo is also one of the tools that people will use to deploy. Okay, Bamboo is given by Atlassian. Bamboo software is given by Atlassian. So you can try it for free, but it is commercial. So here, Jira software is available, Bitbucket software available, Bamboo software available. All these are from Atlassian company. Bamboo is also one of the software that is also paid software, which is used to build, test, and deploy with confidence. Build, test, deploy with confidence by using Bamboos. Okay, fine. Good. Now, sir, what if in the project they are using a different tool which we don't know? So you can tell them that every company will not use the same tools, right? Company to company, the tools will be different. And within the company, project to project, tools will be different. Sir, what if the project is using a tool udeploy, which I don't know? What if the project using udeploy, which I don't know? You don't worry. So if the company is using any commercial tool, they will give you training on that. So whenever you join in the non-prod, right? So to make you as a prod team member, they will give you training for you. They will tell you what is the release process for the production, because production release is not a normal thing. So it should be very sensitive, very careful. We should take a lot of care when we are making a prod deployments. So that's why for freshers, for new joinees, companies will not give prod deployments. Experienced people will be part of the prod team who are experienced in the same project for more than 1 to 2 years. Only those people will do the prod deployment. Okay, so initially you will be in the non-prod team. And sir, what would be our work once you join in the company as a DevOps engineer? First 1 to 2 months of time, You just need to join the meetings and you just understand what is happening in the team, and they will give you small tickets. Give the permission for the developer to access Jenkins. Give the permission for the developer to access Git repository. New people are joining in the project. New developers are coming. New testers are coming. So they will give you ticketing initially. For 1 or 2 months, you will be handling the tickets in the project. What is the meaning of tickets in the project? Giving the access for Jenkins for the developer to run the job. Giving the permission for the testers to run the job. Giving the permission for the developers to access the Git repository. Giving the permission for developers to access the Sonar reports. So these kind of small ticketing work will be available for you for 1 or 2 months of time. First, you will be assigned to tickets resolving. The tickets will be raised by the developers and testers to access our infrastructure. So you will be giving the permissions for them initially. Once it is done, ticketing is done. Once you are good with the ticketing, then they will give you access for non-prod environments. After 6 months or after 1 year, you need to learn and to do the prod deployments. So they will give you prod deployment activity. Once you are comfortable with that, they will give you some training also to do the prod deployments. If you don't know anything, you can ask your team members, you can learn from them, because learning is a continuous process. Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. Okay, if you don't know any tool which is using in the project, you tell to your management, in my previous project, this tool is not available. I'm not aware of this tool. I need some guidance to work with this tool. You can tell them that. You can tell them that, and you can take a training from your team members to work on the tools which are using in your project. You cannot say that, I don't know GitHub, please explain me what is GitHub. That is a bare minimum tool that everybody should know. So here, so for example, as I told you, Udeploy or Bamboos, those are not free source. They will not be used in all the companies, in all the projects. Such kind of tools you can ask training from your team members. You cannot go and ask them, could you please explain me what is SonarQube? You can't ask like that, because that is a bare minimum tool. You can't ask what is Maven. You can't ask what is GitHub. Those are very important and mandatory tools that every project will follow. Some tools, some commercial tools will not be used in all the projects. For those tools, you can ask your team members to provide the training. You can talk to your Scrum Master. You can talk to your manager. You tell them that in my previous company, Udeploy tool is not available, but in our project, Udeploy is available. I need some guidance on the Udeploy. Then they will set up a training for you. They will give the training on the Udeploy to make the production deployment. If you don't know something, you can tell to your management, you can ask them to provide the training for you. That's it. That is how you need to learn. Any tool, if you know, for example, in your project, Ansible is not available, but you know Ansible. Ansible is open source. You can provide the training on the Ansible for your team members. So it's like a collaboration. You need to interact with your team members. Whatever you know, you need to share with your team members. Whatever your team members know, you need to take the training from them. Like that, you need to grow and you need to work in the company. Self-development trainings are most important things. Self-trainings and developments are most important things. And every day stand-up call will be available for team members. Every day stand-up call will be there on daily activities. So what each team member is doing, every day one stand-up call will be there. That is a Scrum process, agile methodology we are going to follow. Every day one stand-up call will be available. All your developers will not be joining your call. Only your DevOps team members will join the call. Your DevOps team will have a manager. Your DevOps team will have a Scrum Master. They will join in the call and they will tell you what are the priority items for today, or what are the priority items for next 1 week, for next 1 month, what is the action plan. All those things they are going to discuss in the stand-up call. Every day, either morning or evening, that stand-up call will be available. So each team member should join in that stand-up call, and you need to tell them that what work you are doing for today, what you have done yesterday. Are you facing any challenges? Do you need any help from your team members? That you need to discuss in the stand-up call every day. Every day stand-up call will be available for the team members. Some projects weekly one stand-up call, in some projects daily, or day by day, like it depends on the culture that project is following. In my project, daily stand-up call is available. Every day for 15 minutes, our team members will join for a call with the Scrum Master. We will discuss what are the action items, what are the pending items. Okay, all those things we are going to discuss and we will do our work accordingly. Every day stand-up call will be there for daily activities. We'll be there to discuss our work status and any blocker issues, any issues that we are facing, right? Technical issues, some IT infrastructure issues, technical issues, network issues, anything that you are facing, you can discuss in the call and your Scrum Master will help you to get out of that issue. Your Scrum Master will help you to get out of that issue. Got my point? Are you clear with your day-to-day activities? What is a non-prod team? What is your prod team? And what kind of work will be assigned to you once you join in the company as a DevOps engineer initially? For 3 months, it will be like a honeymoon period for you. Pressure will not be there. Work also will not be there. Just tickets they are going to assign. You just need to work on the tickets part. And after 3 months, they will give you access for non-prod. After 6 months, they will give you access for prod. Samjha? Good. Next. Guys, I will be sharing some sample resumes also. I will be sharing some sample resumes for you people. So how we need to keep the resume. What are the projects you can keep? I mean, for the DevOps engineer project means you will not be working on one project. You will be dealing with multiple projects in the company. So just you need to mention what is the name of the project and what are the roles and responsibilities in the project that you need to specify. Okay, I'm going to show you a sample resume, guys. I'm going to show you one sample resume. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Yes. Can you see one resume sample? Can you see this resume? Just read the points, whatever we mentioned. Right, guys? So no. So here we are saying that software professional with 3+ years experience in the DevOps environment with the cloud, having hands-on experience on Git version control, Chef and Ansible. So currently we don't know Chef. We discussed about Ansible. Chef is almost outdated, guys. We discussed about Ansible, configuration management tool, Docker, container-based tool, containerization tool, Jenkins, continuous integration, Maven. Ant we don't know. Ant is outdated. We discussed about Maven. Maven is a build tool, CloudWatch monitoring tool, and Kubernetes container orchestration technology or container orchestration tool. Right. So whatever the tools that we know that we are just specifying, having hands-on experience on these tools, designed, built, deployed multitude applications utilizing almost all of AWS, including EC2, S3, IAM, SNS, VPC, SES, CloudWatch, EFS, Load Balancer, Route 53, Auto Scaling, and RDS, AWS CLI, CloudFront, and DB snapshots. So whatever the services that you used in the AWS, those services you can mention. What are the DevOps tools that you have lent? Those tools you can mention. What are the AWS services we have lent? Those tools you can mention. And having hands-on experience in basic Linux commands. So whatever the Linux commands that are required for a DevOps engineer, those commands we have lent. And some shell scripting also we lent. So we are going to specify that. Having good working experience in job automation, cron jobs, enhanced user security with sudo backup and restore tar files, that jobs creations that we have discussed, and how to create the jobs, what are the build triggers, cron expressions you can write for the build trigger, or you can write poll SCM, or you can do scheduled deployments also you can configure. Responsible for all the tools configurations and coordinating with the team members. So what are the tools that are required, like Sonar, Jenkins, Tomcat, Ansible, Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes, all the tools configurations we have done, and we are going to do collaborating with the coordinating with the teams also. So strong interpersonal skills and communication skills we have, commitment. So like you can write some details about your strengths and all what you have done. So first thing we mentioned how many years of experience we have and what are the technologies. We have DevOps and cloud AWS. What are the tools you know in the DevOps? Right here we have not mentioned a Terraform. We know the Terraform also that we can mention. Hands-on experience on Git, Ansible, Docker, Ansible, and we can mention Terraform, infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code. We learned the Terraform also, right? Terraform, Docker, Jenkins, Maven, CloudWatch, Maven, Nexus, repository, build artifacts, SonarQube, code review, code quality checking. Nexus, which is used to store the build artifacts. SonarQube, which is used to check the code quality. Git, Maven, SonarQube, Jenkins, Ansible, Docker, Terraform, Kubernetes. Right. S3 services, whatever the services we know in the S3, those services also we are going to mention. And Linux commands, jobs creation, pipelines creations that we mention. Coming to once your professional summary got completed, now we are coming to technical skills. We discussed about Ubuntu OS in the Linux, and we know how to use Windows in our personal laptop. Red Hat operating systems I have used sometime. I have used Red Hat and I used Ubuntu. Both are different operating system types, guys. Ubuntu is a Debian package type, RHEL, Red Hat, Amazon Linux, these are normal things. So if you go for Ubuntu, apt is the package manager. When you go for RHEL based, yum is the package manager. So what are the operating systems you know? Those things you can mention. And what are the cloud technology related stuff that you know? What are the services that you know? Those services you can mention. And the DevOps tools, what are the DevOps tools? Guys, if you don't know any tool, don't mention that. You no need to mention all the tools. Whatever the tools you know, you just mention only those tools, because they will ask the questions by seeing your resume only. So if you keep Chef, but actually you don't know Chef, I did not explain a Chef. If you keep Chef, they may ask a question on the Chef. So that's why if you don't know some tool, just don't keep it in the resume, remove it. We know Git, we know Docker, we know Ansible, we know Jenkins, we know Maven, we know Terraform, we know SonarQube, we know Nexus, when we know Kubernetes. Whatever the tools you know, only those tools you need to keep. In the Linux, cron jobs, user security with sudo privileges, backup and restoring, deployment automations we can do by using Linux. Servers, web servers and Tomcat servers we have experimented. And languages, we know YAML file, we know HCL language, that is a HashiCorp Corporation language, HashiCorp configuration language for Terraform scripts, YAML for Docker, YAML for Docker Compose and for Docker Swarms, and we are using YAML for Kubernetes, and shell scripting, basics of shell scripting also we know. Ticketing tool is a Jira. So the tickets will be created in the Jira. And experience, how many years of experience you have? That experience you can mention. Currently working in some company, whatever the company you want. As a software engineer from so and so date to till today. Let's keep it as 2019 to till date. That means you are having 3 years of experience. Right. Worked as a trainee software engineer in so and so company. So if you want to keep 2 companies, you can keep. Otherwise, you can keep only 1 company also. That is sufficient. Sir, here, which company you can keep? Any company name. You can keep your client company name instead of the payroll company. You can keep your client company name here. Client company name here. Got it. Now, technical skills on the DevOps and Linux. So whatever the things that you know, you can mention whatever the things that you have done in your project, having good experience in working with Git, GitHub and Jira, used Git extensively in the project to store all kind of code, good understanding of Git stages, well versed with Git commands, having good understanding. Chef related stuff you remove because we don't know that chef concept, chef roles and all, chef server, chef cookbooks, everything that I'm removing. Yeah. Install and configure build tools like Maven. YANT is outdated, guys. We discussed about Maven. Having hands-on experience on Jenkins, pipelines, Docker, Docker images, Docker file, and Kubernetes, Docker containers, port mapping, installation of configuration of Ansible, writing a playbooks by using Ansible, and aware of installation of Kubernetes architecture, Maven POM files, and AWS services, CloudWatch, EC2, S3 buckets, and control bucket policies, control list, IAM users, user permissions, IAM accounts, SNS, CloudWatch, Linux OS. So these things that whatever the things that you have done in your project, these points that you mentioned there. Project 2, what are your roles and responsibilities of you in this project? You can mention project 1 and project 2. You can mention 2 projects, guys. As a DevOps engineer, you can mention 2 projects. I am managing these 2 projects. So what in the project? So you no need to know what is the project description and all. What is the project? Who is your client? From when to when? From when you have started working on the project? What is the technology stack of the project? What are your roles and responsibilities in the project? You have to mention there. What is the project and what are the responsibilities? What are the technical stack? Our technical stack is AWS DevOps. Your academic qualification details you can keep, and finally your declaration, you can write your name and place. Okay, so anything which you don't know from this resume, you just delete it. So if you don't know any particular service or if you don't know any particular tool, don't keep that in the resume, because they will observe your resume very carefully and they will ask the questions from the resume only. Whatever the tools, whatever the services, whatever the roles and responsibilities you keep, they are going to ask the same thing. Okay, I'm going to share this resume in our portal, guys. You can download this resume, and I'm going to share this day-to-day activities, whatever we discussed. All these things I'm going to upload into our portal, this resume and the sample document. You can go through this and you can prepare your resume. Once your resume got prepared, then upload that resume in the Naukri. upload that resume in the Naukri so that you will be getting the calls. Right. I will give you the sample resume so that you can make the changes according to your convenient and you use this and you can upload. Fine. When you are uploading the resume in the Naukri or when you are sending the resume to the HRs, don't send in the Word format, send in the PDF format, because from operating system to operating system, this word alignments are going to change. So don't send it in the Word format. Prepare a PDF with this document, change your details here. You can add your details and upload this as a PDF into the Naukri so that you will be getting the calls from the companies. You will be getting the calls from these companies. Clear? Good, guys. Thank you. We started with what is operating system. We started with what is operating system 5 months back, and finally we learnt these many things. We started with what is operating system and we completed several services in the AWS cloud, several tools. We are able to create our pipelines. We are able to create infrastructure. We are able to automate infrastructure creation using Terraform. Configuration management, we are able to automate by using Ansible. We are able to create the Docker files, Docker images, and we are able to create clusters. We are able to deploy the applications. We are able to map our applications to the domain name also, all these things. I hope you enjoyed with this. I hope you enjoyed with this. And definitely this, whatever you learnt here, it will help you to crack the interview. Maybe in 3 to 4 attempts, you can crack the interview. First interview, one interview, 2 interviews, first, second, third, you may not be successful because you need to understand what kind of questions that they are asking. But definitely whatever the concepts that you learned, these questions will be asked in the interview. Okay, so you take this 1 week of time, you prepare, you practice whatever the tools that we have learned. So in the next week, I will update in the group about the next week class timing. I will show you one project or setup also, end to end, how to do the deployment by using Jenkins. I will take a project in the GitHub. I want to do the deployment of that project with the complete automation. When I run this Jenkins job, that project should be deployed into EKS cluster. So all this automation I will show you in one session that mostly we will conduct on the next week. Okay, fine, guys. So meanwhile, in this week, I will prepare some interview questions also for the DevOps and AWS. I will share those interview questions also before coming to next session on the project. Clear? Interview questions also I will be sharing. Give me 1 week of time. I will prepare those questions and I will give you. So next weekend, next Saturday or next Sunday, we will make one class. In that class, we will discuss the remaining stuff. Then finally, we will done with our course by next weekend. So from this Monday to next Friday, we don't have class. We don't have a class. I'm giving this 1 week of time for your practice, guys. So please do the practice and we will meet on next Saturday or next Sunday. I will update that in the Telegram. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Happy Sunday. We'll see you on next session that will happen in the next week. Until then, bye bye. Good night. Take care. I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best. I want to hear your success stories very soon. I want to hear your success stories very soon. So I am expecting messages from you people. Sir, I got selected in this company. This is my package, so that we will release success posters. Miss you all, guys. We'll see you in the next session. Bye bye. Happy Sunday.